to the WPL Book Drop Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Thill, Library Assistant at Waterloo Public Library. I am excited to welcome a great guest to the podcast. Joining us today is watercolor artist and writer Felicia Babb-Cass. Felicia uses her gifts to nourish others, seeding their connections to creativity and nature. Her work focuses on the impermanence and interdependence of nature and humanity, and is a search to make meaning of nature, ourselves, and our relationships. She teaches workshops and retreats on writing, watercolor painting, and creativity. And when she's not on a quest, writing, or painting, you'll find her in her garden. Welcome, Felicia.
Thanks for having me, Seth.
Of course. How are you doing today?
I'm great.
Good.
Glad to be here with you.
Of course. Yeah, we're happy to have you. So since this is your first time on the show, could you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself? Obviously, from our introduction, we know that you're a painter and a writer. How long have you been practicing those art forms, and what spurred you to start?
So I started my professional life as a journalist, and it's hard to make a living as a journalist, So then I got into management, and my husband had this opportunity to take a job, and we were fairly newly married when he had this opportunity. So this was about 14 years ago, and it required him to be in Nebraska, about over 6 hours away from here. So newlyweds, I wanted to go with him. I quit work full-time, and my intention was to go back after a year's break. So I took this break to revisit writing and my passion around writing, and when I came back, I just never went back to work, so I kept writing, and I started painting and working on books and writing and teaching and building community. So.
Yeah. Felicia is really involved in the Cedar Valley area in building community, in fostering relationships among people, especially centered around the arts and around writing and painting specifically. But beyond that general sense of community, can you talk a little bit about your relationship with libraries as they pertain to that concept, and how did you come to collaborate with the Waterloo Public Library on the author Seedbed Workshop Series, which is something that we've been having for the last, would have been June we had our first sessions, over the summer, and we'll be continuing to do in the fall. Could you talk a little bit about that, and how you came to collaborate with us on that?
Sure. So I'm part of the Hearst Center. The Hearst is in Cedar Falls, their Thursday Painters group. So when I began painting, I was looking for community. Because a lot of creative work is done, you're off in your own garret or a closet, writing or painting, scribbling, doing whatever you're doing by yourself, and it's lonely, and you don't even know what you don't know, right? So when you're in community, there are lots of people that are further ahead in the journey than you are, and they're such a huge help to you, and they're such a great encourager. So I joined the Thursday Painters group, which filled my cup for painting. Now suddenly I had a cohort of colleagues that I meet with on a weekly basis and ask all kinds of dumb questions and get all kinds of really smart answers. I've tried forming different writing groups, I've attended writers' conferences, but there was no place for this kind of community, even though, we have you and I, and we have lots of great art institutions. There's no real place for writers to gather on an ongoing basis. So I approached the Waterloo Public Library and said, I've got this idea, what if we got writers together? There are lots of writer conferences. We have one in Cedar Falls, the Cedar Falls Christian Writers Conference. But once you've attended the Writers Conference that works and focuses on craft, if you're trying to get your work out to a larger audience, there's no place that really helps budding writers who want to become authors find their way there. And so I thought we have a lot of authors in our community who have taken different journeys, and it'd be really great if we could have those knowledgeable folks come in and start to build community with writers. If, just like in my painting life, I could form a group of colleagues around this idea of writers in the trenches practicing their craft.
Yeah, definitely. It is, because so much of that, like you mentioned, the craft and then the business side of things, or like the administrative parts of being a writer, is a lot of what we focused on with that workshop series. And so much of that is just very, I think, opaque to people who haven't had the privilege of, for me personally, I have 2 English degrees. That gives me a lot of resources that a lot of people don't have access to, and some of those authors in our community have that experience and have been around the block a few times, and being able to share their expertise, and again, kind of demystify that whole the parts of writing that aren't quite as fun as doing the actual writing, but are really necessary and really important if you want to get your work read and connect with people with your writing, because that starts with community. That whole, whether it's connection on this community level in your local area, or whether it's connection through publishing in magazines or publishing your own books. Yeah, it's really important to have the tools to do that, and that starts, I think, locally and
Right. Just like the Thursday Painters, finding resources that know what I didn't even know I didn't know.
Yeah.
And can start having those conversations in very helpful ways is really the goal for the author seedbed.
Definitely, yeah. Just getting the expertise that is here, is right outside our doors, yeah. And to continue on that, I know we talked a lot about fostering literary community in the Waterloo area when we were planning this workshop series. And we've talked a little bit about this, but with you personally, what does that community mean to you? Why is that important beyond just the fact that it helps move you forward professionally and creatively? What is so important about that sense of community to you in terms of fostering creativity?
I think for me, it's the well. So if you think of, we can only plumb what we have within us, you can kind of think of community as the spring that feeds the well. So it's the place that you can go to and find refreshment and encouragement, and people who will give you a hug when you're feeling like your writing just sucks or your painting just sucks. Sometimes when I'm painting, someone will say, "That's a nice use of red," which means the whole painting is a hot mess. But you keep going, sister.
Of course.
And those are the kinds of things I want to have as a writer, as a creative person, and those are the things I want to create the environment to have more broadly for the whole community.
Yeah, that encouragement is huge, because I think, again, with so many of the processes that go into the professional side of writing, it's easy to see how those processes can be inaccessible, or they can feel inaccessible, and just the simple encouragement, even beyond just the gaining expertise and the technical side
stuff.
of things. Yeah, just the pat on the back, the making it a little bit less solitary, like you mentioned earlier. You kind of people often create alone, whether that be writing or painting or whatever the art form may be. A lot of times that early drafting, those early stages of creating before it's out in the world, can be such an isolating part of the process, and until you're getting that out in the world, having people who can be involved one way or another, who can kind of help fill your cup, and
And I think valid criticism is a place that having community where you're in relationship with people, so you know what they know and you value their opinion, and so when they give you honest, critical feedback, you're able to take it in because you know they're coming from a good place. They're cheering you on. So it's the cheering squad, but sometimes it's also the firing squad.
Of course.
It's a very gentle fire.
Yeah.
But people who can push you as as a creative, as an artist, people whose opinion you value and respect.
Yeah.
So that's a wealth that you get from that kind of community too. Over time, you have to invest in it, and you have to invest in those relationships. But that's invaluable to get that kind of feedback that can push you as an artist and pushes your work to whole new levels.
Because especially with writing in particular, we can oftentimes writing can be very personal to you and can be vulnerable and difficult to share. So that development over time that you don't always get in terms of like attending writers conferences, or even in my time in school, even though I had a lot of really great professors and great classmates, it's different when you're just like thrown in to a bunch of people, and these strangers at least from the get-go are reading your work. So being able to develop that community with people you trust, with people whose opinions you value, who are coming to it from a place of love and of
mutual respect.
From this place of mutual respect. That's huge, and knowing that there's no competition there, it can be
right. Everybody can win. That was one of the other thoughts I had as you were talking is cheering, seeing someone else succeed where you've stubbed your toe. Is so encouraging. Because it means it can be done, and you can do it too. So it is. It's not a contest where there are winners and losers. It's like your success becomes part of my success because I've watched you bloom.
Definitely.
And so that's all of that is part of what I'm hoping that we get out of community, that it gives you courage to keep going and keep trying. And
so small victories are really, really important in writing. I know we co-gave a presentation a few weeks ago about publishing in like literary magazines, which is if you attended, you might be familiar. If you didn't, we basically just talked about how to get your work out there in different publication outlets, particularly literary magazines that publish single pieces from authors rather than like whole collections. And something we talked about is how writing is filled with a lot of rejection. There's a lot of little failures, so to speak. So on the flip side, those little victories are so huge and so important to kind of grasp onto. And when you have a community, you're not, like you said, everybody's victories are kind of everybody's, because there's this interconnection among each other and among each other's work. And you rack up those victories faster when you're also rooting for the people around you. So moving into your visual art, Felicia also had a gallery of original paintings, original watercolor paintings open over at the Ragged Edge in Cedar Falls. Can you talk a bit about that experience, getting that work out in the world and sharing that, and what community members can expect when they go to check it out?
Sure. So the gallery show is open at the Ragged Edge, 504 Bluff Street, Cedar Falls, until September 22nd. I'll give a little plug. So in April or May, Kendra Woolert, who owns the Ragged Edge, reached out to me and asked if I would be open to doing a one-woman solo show. And I said yes. Having never done a gallery show ever before and struggling even to get like one picture matted framed into contest, which I've only done like twice, I said, sure. I can get, how many do you need? 30? So, not knowing what I didn't know, I just said yes. And fortunately, I have a community of artistic souls who knew that I was in way over my head. And they jumped in and saved me from myself and helped me put it together. And what's really surprising to me about this work is that it's about a book that I started writing a while ago. And I started writing this book as an illustrated nonfiction book because I was having problems at my own dinner table, having civil conversations for the first time in my life. And I really believe in the mantra of love your neighbor as yourself. And I thought that was just such an incredibly low bar for us to try to get over. But I was finding that I couldn't do it with my family, with my friends. And so I reverted back to my journalism background, and I thought, I'm going to save you, Seth. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to go report on the problems we're all having with each other around, and I started thinking of it about as a virtue project. Like, what would happen if you tried to live with the virtues for a single month? And so I wrote about that and illustrated it. And I've been working to get this book published, but there's really, the market is very limited for full color, 140 pages of full color illustrated books. So I have finished like about 175 paintings for this book. I just put those aside and I've started focusing on just the book itself. So it's really funny to me that the first thing that gets a public viewing is the artwork, because I set that set that aside. So if you go see it, what you will see is excerpts of the writing that go with each piece and the virtue that's tied to that piece of art. So I hope you'll take time, and you can have a really bespoke cocktail while you're there. Kendra has lovely cocktails.
The folks over at the Ragged Edge are really great. They do great work in everything they do.
Yeah, it's a really fun place.
Yeah, so go check it out. So we're starting to wrap up here. As Book Drop listeners may remember, we always end the show with 2 book, TV show, or movie recommendations from our guest and from the host. Again, apologies for those few months in a row where I forgot to give my own recommendations. I will start with my 2 recommendations, and we'll end with Felicia here. So for today, I kind of wanted to recommend some that I've read in the past. It's been a little bit since I've read these, but these came to mind because these are both things that kind of meld genres in the similar way that Felicia does with her art and writing. So the first one is called Golden Record by Valero-O'Connell, and it is a bilingual hybrid work of visual art, poetry, and autofiction, which is fictionalized accounts of real life. And it's just really, really stunning. The artwork is so eye-catching. It's the reason I picked it up off the shelf here at the library. I'll link it in the episode description so you can check it out and take a look at the cover. And it's one of those rare instances where judging a book on the cover is actually perfectly fine to do, because it is just beautiful through and through. It covers such a huge range of content. It goes through grief and our relationship with our bodies and family and just so much. It's ethereal and ephemeral in the most fascinating ways, and just really, really makes so many moving parts come together really beautifully. Golden Record by Valero-O'Connell. Cannot recommend that one enough. Again, bilingual in English and Spanish. I don't remember if I clarified the languages. And then the second that I have to recommend is Bright by Kiki Petrosino. That is also a hybrid work of, it is a memoir/essay collection in verse, so its entire thing is written like a poem, but has this through line of, again, our relationship with our families, with our bodies. It goes through the author's experience as a Black woman navigating all of the things that we all navigate and the extra challenges that come with that. And is just, again, really stunning, really masterfully done in the melding of the genres that are present, and cannot recommend that one enough. So Bright by Kiki Petrosino. Those are my 2 recommendations for this for today's episode. Felicia, what do you have for us?
I have the last book I checked out at the library, and I want to give a little plug for the library's recommend a book, because this is one that I recommended to the library, and then like 3 weeks later you guys had it and emailed me and said, come in, it's here to pick up. This one is so good that I haven't yet, but I'm going to order it for my personal library. And that's one thing I really appreciate about the library is I can try books out without cluttering my library. This is 7 Drafts, Self-Edit Like a Pro from Blank Page to Book by Allison K. Williams. And this is, I've read lots of editing and how to get published kinds of books. This one is fun and it's funny and it's actionable. So I love this book. And my other what's inspiring me, again from the library, is using the Libby app. And what I love about the Libby app is that you can get magazines and they're just so beautiful in full digital reproduction. And you can get international magazines, which is tremendous. So my favorite painting magazine is called Leisure Painter. It's a UK magazine. I love it so much. I looked into subscribing to it. It's like $200 to get it sent here, right? So, but I can get it every month when the new one comes out. I put the smart tag on it. It notifies me it's on my bookshelf, and I can go and blow those images up as far as I want. It's got detailed how to learn new techniques, and it's for watercolor, oil, and acrylic, so it covers all the bases. And I often read even the acrylic and sometimes a watercolor publication or articles in it, because often they have something about composition or value studies that are helpful to my art. So those are my 2 recommendations.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those. Yeah, if you haven't taken a look at the magazine section on the Libby app, or if you haven't familiarized yourself with the Libby app, can't recommend it enough. It's a really good way to get even more out of your library membership. And yeah, it is, the magazines are so beautifully reproduced on there. It's not like a stagnant, sometimes the digitization process can kind of lose some of that fidelity.
It's really
but
crisper
it's
and better and portable.
Yes, yeah.
And international. It just brings the whole world to you in visually stunning ways.
Yes, just another way that the library can broaden your horizons and give you access to the world that you might not otherwise be able to find yourself in. Thank you so much, Felicia, for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And again, we were talking about the Author Seedbed Workshop Series. That will be continuing through the fall here at WPL. In September, we have a couple workshops. The first one will be on September 10th at 2 p.m. I will be teaching a class about the craft of poetry. And then a couple weeks after that, we'll get back into the more nitty-gritty administrative side of things and talk about the implications of publishing a chapbook, which is a small book of can be poetry. In my experience, it has been poetry, but you can write chapbooks in any genre. So we'll talk about the process of publishing those on the 24th, and then we'll continue on with a few more. I will link to the schedule for that workshop series in today's episode, so feel free to check that out in the description to find out where you need to mark your calendar. So again, thanks again, Felicia.
Thank you.
And we will see you around.